Okay, guys. I was first part. I explained a lot about Diabolic, why he's my number seven uh, hip hop lyricist, MC, or hip hop artist or rapper of all time. That's Diabolic from Long Island, New York, USA, and I mentioned roughly his career from 1997 to 2016 in the first part. Now, I'll get into his more recent activities for Bolic here. Diabolic in 2019, Diabolic released a collaboration album with producer Vanderslice, who's also from the greater New York City area, I believe. I'll post exactly in the comment section of this second part. In the comment section of this, I'll post where exactly Vanderslice is from. But Vanderslice, a very, 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 very skilled hip hop producer. Diabolic and Vanderslice had an album, Collusion, released just over a year ago. Excellent album. It had a solid feature on there from Nems or Gorilla Nems. Diabolic still has it. That was released, I believe, in April of 2019. And a few months later, I believe in July of 2019, Diabolic released his third official studio album. I don't think he counts. I guess it's a collaboration album. The album released a few months before that, which was Collusion with Vanderslice. His third solo studio album was The Disconnect, which was also although it was a great album from start to finish, and so obviously so was Collusion. I believe his album with Vanderslice, Collusion, was an underground classic from start to finish, whereas The Disconnect had some standout songs, but from start to finish, unlike A Liar and a Thief, unlike Fighting Words, and unlike Collusion, The Disconnect had certain standout tracks, and I'll list them in the comment section, but there were some kind of just filler tracks, which I feel is unusual for Diabolic based on his discography. So The Disconnect, his most recent album, I believe even though it was far above average, I would give it a good rating out of 10, say. If I gave it an 8 out of 10 rating, it was still the weakest out of any of his releases, in my opinion. Which goes to show you how high I would rate some of his other releases, and some of them are near 10s out of 10, especially A Liar and a Thief and Collusion, and probably even Fighting Words, 9.5s out of 10. But I would say 8 out of 10 for The Disconnect. It had a few decent songs on it, but it had some also material I felt was like filler. And there's the most recent beef I mentioned. Diabolic had a small micro beef where he did a diss for Tyler, the Creator, just over 8 years ago. I'll put the link for that in the comment section. He had a beef with TK, formerly of Black Star. He has beef with Immortal Technique, although he's only taken a few jabs at Immortal Technique on some of his tracks on Collusion and The Disconnect. He's never really done a diss track for Immortal Technique, but he did a full diss track for Tyler, the Creator, even though Tyler, the Creator, didn't acknowledge Diabolic or respond to it. He did it over the Yonkers beat. But the more significant beef that came after that was with TK. TK did a beef in response, or a beef in response. He did a response, a diss track in response. In that same diss track, he also dissed former Wu-Tang Clan associate Remedy, the white Jewish American former associate of the Wu-Tang Clan, Remedy, or Remedy Ross. But over half the track, probably, he was focusing on dissing Diabolic. That was a notable beef. Diabolic easily took his head off with his diss track Inequality. And I'll put that link for Inequality and Talib's weak response in the comment section. Very recently, in the last, let's see here, maybe 9 to 10 months, Diabolic engaged in a full-on beef with Just Allah, formerly of Jedi Mind Tricks and Army of the Pharaohs. Now this beef is very interesting to me. Just Allah also appears in my top 50 hip-hop artists of all time list. Same thing with TK, and Immortal Technique does. But for diss tracks, Diabolic obviously issued a diss track for TK, as I mentioned, and in the last 9 months or so, he did a diss track for Just Allah. Now, Just Allah, I'm not sure who dissed who first. Just Allah, I'll list the track in the comment section of this, released a diss track called Grease, dissing Diabolic. Just Allah already, for a while has been disassociated from Army of the Pharaohs, from Vinnie Paz. Just Allah, since about 2011, mid-2011, has had beef with Vinnie Paz and Army of the Pharaohs, or the artists who are still in Army of the Pharaohs, and artists associated with Vinnie Paz and Snow Goons and possibly Real Wolf Productions. So, like, a lot of the bulk of the underground hip-hop scene, Just Allah has beefed with since mid-2011. He left Jedi Mind Tricks. He left Army of the Pharaohs. And he's beefed with Vinnie Paz. And he's beefed with Diabolic, which I'm going to get into. He released a diss track towards Diabolic. I believe it was before Diabolic's diss track to but Just Allah dissed Diabolic with the diss track Grease. It was a very weak diss track from Just Allah. Just Allah has heavily fallen off, even though he's one of my top 50 hip-hop MCs of all time. Just Allah has heavily fallen off. Heavily fallen off. And I kind of feel sorry for the guy because he's blackballed from the whole underground hip-hop scene that he was once a very, very, very big part of. Kind of how, on a smaller scale, Lord Luss, I don't even know if Lord Luss makes hip-hop music anymore. I think he's doing some like heavy metal music or something. Lord Luss also blackballed himself from the entire underground hip-hop community internationally. Just Allah, of course, was a bigger player than Lord Luss, and Just Allah did the same thing. He blackballed himself from the international underground hip-hop community when he started feuding with Vinnie Paz and AOTP and Slain, and then, I guess, indirectly Ill Bill, and indirectly R.A. the Rugged Man, indirectly Necro, I guess, but mainly Vinnie Paz and Diabolic. Snow Goons, Real Wolf Productions, and if you do that, if you fuck around with Vinnie Paz, Ill Bill, Real Wolf Productions, and Snow Goons, you basically you blackball yourself from the entire international underground hip hop community. As I mentioned, Lord Lust did that, and Just Allah has done that. Now, Just Allah, as I said, released the diss track towards Diabolic called Grease in the summer of last summer in 2019. Diabolic in a few days responded with a diss track called Carlton Banks. And this is one of probably the greatest diss tracks I've ever heard. Diabolic absolutely decimated Just Allah on his on the diss track Carlton Banks. And I'm a big fan of Just Allah. I'm a big fan of Immortal Technique. I'm lesser of a fan of TK, although I did enjoy the Black Star album from 22 years ago. But Bollock absolutely just destroyed Just Allah. And worse than he destroyed TK. I mean, Diabolic is a better lyricist than TK. I already knew that even before I officially heard his Talib Kweli diss. But I was expecting Diabolic to diss Just pretty bad, but this surpassed my expectations, and he absolutely destroyed Just on this track, Carlton Banks. And I think for Just Allah, there's no coming back after this. Diabolic, when it comes to kind of hardcore diss tracks, he's one of the best there is, and Just Allah just couldn't come close. On Just Allah's diss Grease, it was just very, very, very tame. On Carlton Banks, where Diabolic dissed Just Allah, oh my. I felt sorry for Just, and I'm a fan of Just. And I hope, I'm going to reiterate, I'm going to state that I hope that Diabolic squashes his beef with Immortal Technique. And I hope Diabolic squashes his beef with Just Allah, and Just Allah starts making music with Jedi Mind Tricks and Army of the Pharaohs again, although I don't think that's going to happen. It's more likely that Diabolic might eventually squash his beef with Immortal Technique, but I don't think the beef between Diabolic and the beef between that Just Allah has with Diabolic and Vinny Paz and AOTP and Snow Goons, I don't think that beef is going to go away as easily. Just Allah seems to really dislike Vinny Paz and Diabolic, and I just don't know. I hope the beef does get squashed. I hope Jedi Mind Tricks with Vinny Paz, Stoop the Enemy of Mankind producing, and Just Allah reforms and puts out another album, but I don't think it's likely. It's much more likely that Diabolic squashes his beef with Immortal Technique and they work together in the future. That's much more likely. Just Allah, unfortunately, has really soured his name with Vinny Paz. And like I said, by extension, Snow Goons, Real Wolf Productions, Slain, Ill Bill, Necro, and basically the entire English-speaking underground hip-hop community as a result. R.A. the Rugged Man. I think Just Allah really has shot himself in the foot here, and it's not a good thing. I think Just Allah should be in the should work together with these artists. I know in the past he was capable of making good music with them. So overall, Diabolic, he's very slept on. He's got some buzz in the past. The hidden track, his verses from the hidden track on Dance with the Devil, that was recorded probably 19 years ago, but his 2010 debut album, A Liar and a Thief, got him buzz in the underground. 2014's Fighting Words got him buzz again in the underground. That buzz kind of dissipated a little bit because of his beef with Immortal Technique and him leaving Viper Records in the second half of 2014, right around the time of the release of Fighting Words. But don't sleep on Diabolic. He's still one of the greatest. And I think the release of his album from just over a year ago, Collusion, where he had Vanderslice producing, proves that Diabolic is more than capable of still making great underground hip-hop music. And just, I wouldn't even say underground, he's just one of the best to ever pick up a mic. And you may not agree with Diabolic's kind of cynicism. I'm not a fan of cynicism in hip-hop overall, but you can't deny Diabolic's skill. And that really came through most recently on the album Collusion with Vanderslice. And on the album The Disconnect, I'll name the songs where I feel that his lyricism shines through. It's not that The Disconnect by Diabolic was a bad album. It was a really good album, an 8 out of 10 in my opinion for lyrics. But it just wasn't his strongest showing. It has about, I'll list these 5 tracks in the comment section. It has 5 tracks to me that really stood out. But it felt unusual in the sense that this was a Diabolic album that had some filler on it. The production was hit or miss compared to the production Vanderslice has been able to do for him. And I should mention lastly that in features, there's various features that Diabolic has done over the last 12 or more years. He's killed a lot of features. He's worked with Snow Goons, for example, killed a lot of features with them. He's done features for many underground hip-hop artists and always had a good showing. And he never disappoints in the features that he's done. And he's done features with very well-known underground hip-hop artists like Snow Goons and Vinnie Paz, and some far lesser-known underground hip-hop artists. And he's done features with underground hip-hop artists that rap not in the English language. So this is all over the world. Even though his feature verses in English, he's done so much for the underground hip-hop community. He doesn't get the dap or the regard that he really deserves. And yes, he's not Diabolic is not he's not a conservative. He doesn't believe in political correctness. I would say he's like a democratic socialist or left-leaning, but he doesn't like political correctness. He's no Republican. He's no conservative. He's not a overly. I would consider him a spiritual person, but not a very evangelical, hardcore religious person. But overall, his notions and ideas are progressive. But he's a product of his environment and his youth, growing up in Long Island when he was young in the late 80s and 90s, the golden era of hip hop. And he's unique. He's unapologetic. He's uncompromising. He is who he is. And that's really what I enjoy about him. He's bitter, he's cynical, he's funny, and Diabolic, he's slept on. I mean, no one was talking about the album, for example, like I said, Collusion, that he did with Vanderslice producing all the tracks. It was a great underground hip-hop release. It was very recent, just came out 13 months ago, about even less than that. No, that album was instant to me. To me, it was an instant underground classic release. And The Disconnect, I wouldn't say it was a classic, but it was a far above average album. It had 5 standout songs. I'll list them in the comment section of this video. At the second, I guess those will come in 2 parts. So in the second part, I'll list them. And I just think that Diabolic is heavily slept on. I'm going to put overall just tracks from his whole career. It could be from his early mixtapes and EPs. I'll just put chronologically from his earliest material I can find to his most recent release, The Disconnect, and also features he's done and things like that. I'll just put examples, YouTube links of these tracks, why I think he's my number 7 greatest hip-hop MC of all time. The next video after this, guys, is going to come out in August. I don't know what the subject of that video will be yet. Again, Diabolic, my number 7 hip-hop artist of all time. And also, like I said, this COVID thing is tough. I'm doing okay financially. I don't really have to worry. A lot of other people in my home province of Alberta, Canada, are having a very tough economic time right now. There's a big lockdown here. I don't expect gyms and private gyms and public rec centers to be open for at least another 6 to 7 weeks. And even then, they'll open up and where only 5 or 10 people are allowed, and no one who's a senior citizen is allowed, and they'll have very limited hours. Like I said, I have weights in my condo here. But so this isn't a very big issue. It's not that important, but this is going to push my odd lifting training and me storing. I already know where I'm going to store, which gym, and they'll need my business. And I hope they don't go out of business, because the economy in my home province of Alberta, Canada was already really, really bad. And if you add COVID-19 into that, it's gotten even worse. I don't think this gym will go out of business, though. It's a popular CrossFit gym in the greater Edmonton area. I'll store my dumbbell there. I have to order a few new collars and plates and maybe a handle for my dumbbell, and I'll train. I'll do that. I'm guesstimating by late next year, 2021, December, I should have some videos of me tying my old personal record of 8 reps on my right, 8 reps on my right, and 8 reps on my left for a total of 16. I have to order new pieces of equipment, like I said, and just it's going to take me a while to get back to that level of training. I don't want to injure myself. I'm getting older now, in my 30s. I just don't want to tear a bicep or tricep or a rotator cuff or injure my back or neck or anything like that. So, and I'm steroid free. I'm performance enhancing drug free. So aging, I am not using PEDs or anabolic androgenic steroids. And obviously, I'm not using doctor-prescribed TRT, so it's going to be harder. It'll take longer, but I'll get to where I was in 2016 when I was at my peak. And so my next YouTube videos are coming in August, guys. Thank you, and I appreciate your continued viewership. I really do. I don't make this YouTube channel to make a living. I don't do it full time. I just do it as a hobby. And I don't upload videos all the time. But when I upload videos, I try to put my full effort into those videos. As for the content of the videos and what I talk about in them. So thank you, guys.